still, my soul, the Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently the cross of grief obey. Leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change, He faithful will remain. Be still, my soul, thy best, thy handy friend. Through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. Be still, my soul, thy God doth undertake to guide the future as He has the past. Thy hope, thy confidence, let nothing shake. All now mysterious shall be bright at last. Be still, my soul, though winds and winds still blow. His voice soon rules him while he dwells below. In you I rest, in you I found my hope, in you I trust. You never let me go. I place my life within your hands alone. Be still, my soul. Be still, my soul. The hour is hastening on, when we shall be forever with the Lord. When disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Be still, my soul, when change and tears are past. All safe and blessed we shall meet at last. In you I rest, in you I found my hope, in you I trust. You never let me go. I place my life within your hands alone. Be still, my soul. In you I rest, in you I found my hope, in you I trust. You never let me go. I place my life within your hands alone. Be still, my soul. Be still, my soul. Be still, my soul.
Greetings on this Memorial Day weekend. Later in our service, we will encounter the fact that all truth is God's truth in the context of properly acknowledging the sovereignty of God. One of the ways that this can impact our thinking this weekend and beyond is to remember what the Scriptures say. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. While not all who have served us and others by laying down their lives were believers in Christ, all were human beings created in the image of God. The value of such sacrifice resonates with that image in which we were all created. We therefore honor those whose sacrifice makes possible our freedom to worship God with such relative ease and to enjoy the goodness of our Creator.
I once was lost in darkest night, yet thought I knew the way. The sin that promised
Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining us again for this, our penultimate service, considering the ministry of the prophet Elijah. Today, we move into 2 Kings, and we'll look at the opening verses. The events we are considering take place after the death of Ahab, when his first heir, Ahaziah, ascended to the throne. After the death of Ahab, Moab rebelled against Israel. Now Ahaziah fell through the lattice in his upper chamber in Samaria and lay sick. So he sent messengers, telling them, "Go, inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, whether I should recover from this sickness." But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say to them, Is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Now, therefore, thus says the Lord, you shall not come down from the bed to which you have gone up, but you shall surely die." So Elijah went. The events are fairly straightforward. Ahaziah was severely injured after a fall. He sought to know his fate and turned to a particular manifestation of Baal in his quest. As we have already addressed in this series, Baal was one of many gods worshipped by the Canaanites, but the polytheism extended even to the concept of the manifestations of their deities. The worship of Baal was localized. A locale was typically added to the end of the name to indicate the area where that particular version of Baal was worshipped, such as Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron. Ekron was the northernmost of the 5 great Philistine cities, and was thus the most easily accessible location from Samaria with the shrine to this particular Baal. The dominion and influence of Baal was considered to be limited to a particular area. This belief was necessary as a way of reconciling what would have been the obvious and observable limitations of the supposed deity. Matthew Poole perfectly conveys the real issue at hand in these circumstances through a few brief questions. Is it because there is not a God in Israel? Dost thou not, by this action, cast contempt upon the God of Israel, as if he were either ignorant of the event of thy disease, or unable to give thee any relief, and as if Baal-zebub had more skill and power than he? In contrast to the regional nature of Baal, the one true God had clearly demonstrated that he is unlimited in presence, in knowledge, and in power. We could turn to a wide variety of examples, but let's just consider one in particular that also took place in Canaan years prior, which is recorded in Genesis 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. God is God in Canaan. God is God in Egypt. God was God when Joseph was sold into slavery long before these events. God was God when Joseph was governor over the land in this moment. Just as there was a God in Israel in Ahaziah's day, there had been a God over the ancestor whose name the land and people bore. Years before these moments, God knew what was to come. He knew there would be a great famine. He knew that in order for Jacob and his sons to survive, an incredible chain of events would have to take place. His promise to Abraham and subsequent plan of redemption were not altered to accommodate them, but incorporated all these things from the beginning. The course of Joseph's life was not a series of coincidences, but a God-ordained path. More than ordained, orchestrated, specifically directed as an integral part of His work. God showed through the amazing sequences that led to Jacob and his sons finding their needs met by the long-lost son and brother that He is sovereign everywhere, that He is worthy to look to in all things with complete trust. And He has always done this. The Scriptures are bursting at the seams with proof of God's absolute sovereignty. When we speak of sovereignty, we mean not only that God is in control of all things, but that He alone is worthy to be in control, worthy to rule. There is none like Him in wisdom, power, goodness, justice, mercy, love. Like his father, Ahaziah failed to acknowledge what had been proven to be true beyond all doubt, that there is only one God, and He is worthy to be worshipped with every breath in every moment. He did not look to God for guidance. He did not look to God for aid. Instead, he thought he could find all he needed elsewhere, and he paid dearly for it. When we fail to acknowledge what is true, when we fail to worship God as He deserves, we pay for it too. We may not think of ourselves as idolaters, but any time we do not acknowledge God in all things, we not only commit this sin, but we miss an opportunity to grow in our knowledge of Him and be changed by Him. We miss a chance for our faith to strengthen and His glorious image to be more clearly reflected in our lives. We must look to God for our help. We must rely on Him to meet all our needs. That is not to say that we ignore the ways in which He meets our needs through the world around us. Jacob and his sons had to look to Egypt for their food. But it means that we must understand and acknowledge that it is God who is sovereign over all that exists. God is the one who made their deliverance possible. We must learn from such things and place our faith and trust in Him and allow Him, His Word and His purposes, to shape every part of who we are and what we do. And we must be ever mindful of these things, looking for His hand in motion in our lives. He deserves all the glory for all the good that exists. Consider, for example, something that is certainly pertinent for our current circumstances: medical care. Who deserves the credit for the advances that have been made in this field? It is not the glory of man, but the grace of God that allowed us to understand the body and administer better care. Though it is certainly still serious, remember what it used to mean years ago when someone was having open heart surgery? Now such things happen as though they are nearly routine. Cancer still takes many lives, but it used to be a near automatic death sentence. Now think of how many people you know who are cancer survivors. Has humanity elevated to some new plane of existence? Are these things because we as people have fundamentally changed? You don't have to look very far to find plenty of evidence to the contrary, that we really aren't as smart overall as we may give ourselves credit for, and that we certainly continue to repeat many of the same mistakes that our ancestors did. In short, it's not because we are great, but because God is gracious. We may ask why God doesn't do miracles today the way that He used to. There are a number of layered answers to that question, but the amazing goodness that we experience on a daily basis in many respects of our lives is a testament to His glory. As James instructed us, "Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of His own will He brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of firstfruits of His creatures. God has been very good to us. We would do well to acknowledge the many ways that He has demonstrated His sovereignty and continues to do so. We need to be in the habit of giving God credit for His care and provision, because we need to be in the habit of looking to Him for our care and provision as a way of life. Ahaziah failed to rely upon God as a way of life, and when his life literally depended upon it, he did what he had always done. We may think that we would respond differently, but the reality is that we often resort to what is most common for us in the difficult moments. If we don't look to God in what we think of as small things, we are not likely to look to Him in the larger ones. But that statement in itself reveals flawed thinking, with the delineation between large and small areas of life. There is not any part of my life where I do not need God's wisdom and strength. Anytime I fail to consider the character and nature of God as revealed through His Word, fail to allow His Word to inform how I do anything, and or fail to lift all things to Him in prayer, I am not just taking Him for granted. I am failing to give Him complete lordship over my life. There is wisdom to be found around us, but, as Augustine said, all truth is God's truth. He is truth. Everything around me, all the things that inform the choices that I make, all the ways that I can seek to have my needs met, must be actively brought under the sovereignty of God. This is not a chore, but a blessing. The God of the universe, who set and holds the stars in their places, knows your name and invites you to cast all your cares upon Him, for He cares for you. We don't need to travel to Ekron to find our help. We need only look to the ever-present God. Don't let the idolatry of Ahaziah gain the slightest foothold in your life. Instead, let the words of Psalm 121 shape you every day. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. May we rest in those truths. I invite you to join me in praying Psalm 139. O Lord, You have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, You know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay Your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from Your Spirit? Or where shall I flee from Your presence? If I ascend to heaven, You are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, You are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, ever there Your hand shall lead me, and Your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to You. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with You. For You formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise You, For I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. May we look to the all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present God in all things and trust in His holy sovereignty.